Accessible Research Summary. Vocational Rehabilitation Transition Outcomes of Youth with Disabilities. People with disabilities have high unemployment rates and low post-secondary education, that is, attending a college or university rates. Research has found participation in transition programs to help prepare them as they transition from high school to adulthood helps students with disabilities have better post-secondary education, employment, and independent living outcomes. Unfortunately, there are large differences in how these services are provided. Students with disabilities are not necessarily receiving the best transition services. The purpose of this study was to determine differences in outcomes, that is, employed versus not employed, of youth with disabilities aged 14 to 22 years old that participated in a vocational rehabilitation transition program from a Midwestern state. This research also wanted to figure out if certain groups, for example, race, gender, location, and disability type, were more likely to receive rehabilitation services, and which groups had better rehabilitation outcomes. Key findings: white people had more successful outcomes than racial minorities. Black people were the most likely to not receive rehabilitation services. Hispanic people were more likely to have successful rehabilitation outcomes than black or white participants. Men had higher employment outcomes than women. Youth with learning disabilities or behavioral disorders had better outcomes than other disability types. Youth with psychiatric disabilities had a greater chance of receiving rehabilitation services than youth with sensory or physical disabilities. Youth in small towns, that is, less than 50,000 people, were more likely to have successful rehabilitation outcomes than youth living in large urban areas. The findings of this study are important to help improve vocational rehabilitation transition programs. Many students with disabilities would benefit from participating in vocational rehabilitation transition programs. This Accessible Research Summary Brief series is brought to you by the Institute on Disability and Human Development at University of Illinois at Chicago.